I'll help you out. I don't. Yeah, the prices seems to be worth it. How much do those things cost per? You put doubles on the front porch or those singles? They're doubles. How much do the thin ones cost or the doubles? Yeah, just curious. Pennies. Yeah. With their weight in steel, roughly.
The
Right.
blue water view on camera 1 is a stark contrast to the cloudy view we've got on camera 3 right now. It almost looks tropical underwater.
Yeah, so occasionally you'll see
Yep.
on channel 1 these clouds wafting off of the Hercules ROV, and we're just shedding the mud that has accumulated on the bottom of the Hercules. Contributing to the marine snow.
Mm-hmm. Sending it back down to the bottom where it can continue to be recycled.
Yes, nothing wasted.
So there's a whole community of animals that lives up in the benthic midwater, or not the benthic midwater, but the pelagic midwater. And hopefully we'll see a few of them. Some of the squid and other animals typically come by the vehicle. And every day when the sun goes down, they actually complete one of the largest migrations in all of Earth, migrating from the deep ocean up into much shallower surface waters to feed at night, and then migrating back down during the day. And that's another big source of carbon transport to the deep ocean. It's called a diel vertical migration. And everything from small jellies and zooplankton to small fish and squid participate in that every night.
Yeah, you can, if you are on a ship and you have your sonar on, you can see the band moving up on your or your echo sounder. You can see that. It's pretty neat. And I was reading somewhere that they comprise the most biomass on Earth.
Midwater animals?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And actually, like, there's one specific fish, the bristlemouth, that's like the most numerous animal on Earth because it's found in so many midwater ocean basins.
I'm reading up here. There was, I guess, a science article on this not too long ago. That there are, let's see, where was the amount? Oh, it doesn't really say. Other than that they're everywhere. Oh, there are likely thousands of trillions of bristlemouth fish in the world's ocean. That's 18 zeros.
Yeah.
Crazy. So
Yeah, I think.
if we're not going to see them, they are beneath us right now. So we would not see them migrating up. We wouldn't be going through them or going through
They may
them.
actually be in the midwater, so we might see them. Usually, when we're at it, in the 1,000 to even up to 500-meter range, we'll see the myctophids, which are a related family, the lanternfish, and so it's possible we could see them. They may not be as deep as the abyssal area; they're just deeper, but they'll move up into the top couple 100 meters at night.
Right. So let's hope that we go through them
Yeah.
as they're and they hide down in the deeper waters away from the predators that can see them in the surface waters during the daytime, and then
Mhm.
they'll rise when it's dark. And I'm sorry, Meredith, if you already said that. I'm just repeating what you said.
Just diving for the mute button again. My dog is cute, but he has one volume and it's loud. So the dive this evening is the Petrali Soul Ground, and that's just on the other side of the bank.
Correct. It's about, I think I wrote it down, it's about 17 miles offshore, and it's on a sort of a rocky outcrop, not on the bank itself. It's before you really get
Mm-hmm.
to the bank. And it's a place where Liz Clark, who works for the Northwest Fisheries Science Center, and she runs their autonomous underwater vehicle program, and she was surveying the area with the AUV in 2005, and they went back in 2018 to resurvey the same area. Scientists will often do this. They will survey an area and then go back 10 years later to see if if any changes have happened. And they were surveying it in 2018, and after they reviewed the video imagery from the AUV, they noticed that there were aggregations of Petrali sole, and these are a flatfish. They're also a commercially important species. People like to eat them. Some of you who are listening might have had some Petrali sole. And they noticed that there were large amounts of them sort of gathering together in groups, and they were on top of each other like dinner plates. And
Wow.
this is likely because they're flatfish, not just two upon each other, but four or five. And maybe if Abigail is listening, she can add more to it. But I'm just retelling the story from Abigail. Ooh, what's that going by in the shadow? Oh, can't really tell. and they want to go back. And this was in the October timeframe, and fish tend to spawn seasonally or reproduce seasonally. So they're going to go back. We're in October again, and survey it now using the ROVs from the Nautilus, and they're not going to sample any of the fish. It would be hard to catch them, but they hope to get some really great video imagery. And if they don't find the aggregations of Petrale sole, because they've observed this once, maybe they'll observe it again, this will be an opportunity for them to look at some of the areas on the reef, on this reefy structure that might have corals and sponges. It'll be a short dive. Yeah. It'll be a short dive. Yeah. And so this will be a short dive at a relatively shallow depth compared to other places that we visited on the bank. So it'll be at 500 meters. It shouldn't take them very long to get there if the descent rate is 20 meters per minute. So that would be 5 times 5, 25 minutes. They'd be on the seafloor already. That's a ctenophore that just went by, I think. It had sort of those teeny type of reflectance.
Yeah, little teens.
Yes. The little teeth is what I think of. Yeah, I think it'll be a fun dive. It'll be different. And compared to watching fish reproductive behavior on coral reefs, it's not that easy to do with these temperate reef or temperate water fishes. We don't have a lot of documentation of that.
Yeah, they tend to be in areas that are harder to get to and somewhat more hostile.
Yeah, not that different from what we're doing right now. It's not easy to get to the escarpment. So for my PhD work, I worked on I studied the reproductive behavior of a coral reef fish, and it was pretty easy. It was just, in warm water, snorkel depth, and could collect hours and hours of this fish and its pretty bizarre spawning behavior, and then collected genetic samples of the fertilized eggs and did paternity analysis, and also collected the gametes of the sperm that the male fishes were releasing, and could estimate how much sperm they were releasing for each fertilization. So tried to figure out, did you get a higher fertilization rate with more sperm or less sperm? And there were also other males competing for access to those eggs. So that's why I did the paternity analysis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It was a fun project.
Despite doing my PhD at a somewhat tropical university at the University of Miami, I did my PhD all in the Gulf of Mexico, working on a small bait fish that lived in the intertidal marshes.
And what did you find?
So I was actually studying the response of this fish to hypoxic events, which are really common in the Gulf of Mexico, and tracking how their evolutionary history and their gene expression response changed in response to hypoxia. And they're all quite tolerant of hypoxia, but some of the populations that were in areas that experienced more frequent hypoxic events seem to actually adapt a little faster than the same species from areas of the coast that didn't see as much hypoxia.
Yeah, because some of the hypoxia would have been sort of natural phenomenon, right, in some of those areas. But what we're observing now with these dead zones is not natural. It's being mediated by the amount of runoff with fertilizer in it.
Yeah, they're more pronounced, and they tend to last a lot longer than they would normally.
Right.
It's always an interesting mental comparison, thinking about the types of the patterns of low oxygen in the Gulf of Mexico, which tend to be quite different and driven largely by the Mississippi, versus the oxygen minimum zones out here, which are driven by the high productivity and upwelling largely, although they're starting to change too and result in response to some climate changes.
Yes. We especially in the last 5 years, we've had quite a few warm water events where we called it the warm water blob that came down from Alaska, and it really affected a lot of the sort of the oceanographic and therefore the productivity of the area all the way down to California.
Yep. That was the year we had the big pyrosome blooms that went all the way up towards Alaska. Some of the Nautilus dives that would encounter just the bottom absolutely covered in pyrosomes in places where they're not completely unheard of, but much, much more rare. Seen a couple of collapsed larvation houses, but none that are fully intact yet. We come up through the water column.
So what is the guide that you're using for the fishes that we might encounter?
So on my computer monitor, I'm sitting here in my living room with two laptops, and then my big television screen is what I'm running looking at the dive off of. But on my one of my laptops, I've got the Survey Fishes Guide that was put out by Northwest Fisheries Science Center. That's all of the different fish species they've encountered in the trawl survey. So it's actually pretty comprehensive for West Coast species. I then have a copy of Milton Love's Certainly More Than You Want to Know About the Fishes of the Pacific Coast, which is a really elaborate, very heavy tome all about different fish species on the West Coast. It covers quite a few of them. And what I find fun is it's got little anecdotes about all of the species in addition to like great photographs and their distinguishing characteristics.
Yes, Milton is a wonderful fish biologist that has sort of the gift of the gab, and
yes,
he definitely is a fun person to meet and talk to, and his books are definitely worth buying.
Yep. And then I just have the field guide to coastal fishes from Alaska to California.
Oh, and these are hard copies. These aren't electronic guides.
Yeah, these are hard copies.
Okay, yeah.
And then in our little,
go ahead.
In our little folder of online guides, I think Tom put an updated version of his slide deck that has all the fishes he's identified on transects in there today.
I'll check it out. But I don't think any of Tom's are of midwater fishes, but maybe there are. I'll open it.
I think they're almost all benthic fishes.
Yeah.
He might have thrown the blue shark in there from the 2018 Express cruise.
Okay. The token species.
there's a little collapsed elevation house just tracing the lasers down.
Yep. So Taylor Ann, you're still doing data logging?
Yes, I just passed off the sample sheets to Steve to prep the wet lab, and now I'm back to watching the blue water.
Thanks. So if you see anything, Taylor Ann, please join us
Of course.
if you feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Because I saw you were adding some notes in the data log, and I thought, oh, she's back. And since you have that huge monitor, maybe it's easier for you to see some of this than it is for us.
Yeah, and I have my glasses on, and then I also have a little monitor right next to me, which is nice.
I'm hoping we see a little hatchetfish or some ectophids to give us an excuse to talk about fish bioluminescence.
Me too. I've never seen them sort of, on I've seen them in nature films, but never sort of on a cruise like this before. So that would be super cool.
Actually, there was a very recent paper that just came out about. Oh. Go ahead.
I think I saw something like a jelly move by, purplish, but it was sort of in the distance.
Might have been a
Go ahead.
2-4 back there.
Yeah, that might have been a little bit 18 and 4.
It's always frustrating when something is like way out there and you just catch a glimpse of it and you're like, oh, I know it must be the coolest thing. Just, well, come on, get a little closer to the ROV. There's just a study that came out of some of the deep sea, I think, dragonfish, that they have some kind of special light absorbing pigment in their skin that makes them like one of the darkest, blackest things in nature, because their skin is actually designed to absorb any light that hits it.
How do they accomplish that?
It's some special, like the way their melanin lines up in their skin is so dense that it basically just absorbs all light.
It's not the same thing, but it's like that movie that came out with the Invisible Man. He was covered in some like skin that had all kinds of cameras on it. So they must have the arrangement of their scales must be done in some way that it, like what you were saying, that it absorbs the light.
Yeah.
Nature is
really
so
fascinating.
Incredible.
Yep.
So which fish was this?
It's one of the Pacific, I want to say, dragonfishes. There was actually even like a New York Times article about it, highlighting it. I found it really fascinating.
So like are they the ones with the lure, so that they dangle a light emitting lure right in front of their mouth? Or is it another kind?
I'm looking it up right now. I just found the Duke University press release. This deep sea dragonfish, and it is one of the ones that has a lure, but it's a barbel that hangs down under its chin.
Right by
And
its
apparently
mouth. Very convenient.
Yes. The fish have evolved ultra black skin that absorbs more than 99.5% of the light that hits them, making them nearly impossible to pick out from the shadows.
Yeah, so I guess having a black skin and being in the darkest of darkest places on Earth wasn't enough. Had to be for whatever little light. Well, and I guess with the number of animals there in the deep water that bioluminesce, so it wouldn't be picking up any of that light.
Yeah. Well, there are some fish that have basically bioluminescent headlights that will kind of allow them to scan out into the water. And then some like ctenophores, or not ctenophores, copepods that can release bioluminescent like depth charge mucus. And so being able to hide from all of those sources of light allows you to be a better predator.
Yeah.
It also explains why when you see things like the Pacific black dragons from an ROV, which we do see occasionally, I think we got one on a dive a couple nights ago, they just throw up a silhouette, so you don't get any like scale reflection that you can get from some of the other fish. And then some of the hatchetfish have the opposite strategy where their sides are super mirrored to just reflect all of the light that hits them, but at the same wavelength. And so they blend in that way by just appearing like whatever the background color is.
That is more like the Invisible Man.
Yes. The larvation house, another collapsed one.
Hey Jake, did you see in the notes for the DSC that he recommends like starting the file transfer like while coming up? Your can you say that again? Oh, cool. So you don't have to. Okay. Is that while it's running as well, or only once it's stopped? I think I just saw Nicole come up and sit here for a second and then leave, so I think she stopped it. Yeah. Cool.
I'm excited to see the photos that come off of this high definition camera. The screen grabs are always great, and I work with them a lot, but I'm excited to see what the still camera has to offer as well.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor Ann. I opened up the same article, the New York Times one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's the one that Meredith said she had seen. So.
Yeah. A larvacean house. just drifted by. I mean, can you imagine doing all of this without having access to Google or some other, whatever would have come? Oh, there's a,
Oh,
is that
there's
also,
a nice one. Yeah,
and that
that's a
house
larvation
wasn't
house.
completely collapsed.
Yeah, that's pretty much intact. Got a really good view of the lobate structures.
Yeah, the different rooms of the house that they made.
Hopefully this means we're getting into a zone where there'll be some more of them. Can also tell we're getting closer and closer to the, slowly but steadily, to the oxygen minimum layer, where our oxygen level was up in the 20s down on the bottom, and it's dropped down to 14%. And this seems to be slowly dropping down from there as we climb. So it'll be interesting to watch it drop all the way down to the minimum and then pick back up.
I was listening to the watch before us, and I can't recall. Someone was saying that the oxygen minimum zone is when it goes below 25 micromoles per liter.
Yeah,
so
that was Steve.
Yeah. Thanks. I couldn't remember. So we're still, and rather than looking at percentage, we're looking at the concentration, and we're still at 60.
We've got a ways to go.
Yeah. But we're at 2,000 meters. We still have like you said, a way to go.
Yep. I will say the only perhaps pro, perhaps con of blue water is you also find out just how dirty your monitor is. So you stare looking for little things. I'm like, wait, is that me? Oh no, it's just a smudge. I will be cleaning the screen after this dive.
Well, now that you said that, no, that's not a smudge. Seems to be a smudge on the camera. Are you seeing the same thing? It's sort of middle of the
Fixed
screen.
right at the bottom.
That's the
Yeah.
that's a light reflection because we're tilted up. We had to move one of the arms, so we were tilted up, so that's out of view. So there's a bit of a light reflection at the bottom from the top left.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for explaining what that is.
Yeah.
You see it and you think, oh. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Seems to be struggling with the, not anymore, but with the wake of the ROV.
Yeah.
So ctenophores are also called comb jellies. And that's because they have those rows, as you saw from the top going down to the bottom, from these sort of like melon segments, if you will. And along those ridges are these little teeth, teeny, and they look like a comb that you use to comb your hair with. And as the teeny move, they reflect light, so they can seem iridescent. They're very pretty.
Yeah. I was like,
The
when
Monterey.
you get a nice.
Go ahead.
I was like, maybe we get a nice shot of them, and you can watch the like little rainbow iridescents move in waves down their bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, if any of you ever have a chance to make it to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, they have a nice exhibit on them, sort of near the, I haven't gone in a while, but I assume it's still there. But it's near the open water exhibit. And this is an appropriate place to display ctenophores because they're in the open water.
Mm-hmm. Actually, a ctenophore, I think, is one of the oddest things we saw today attached to that sponge. Benthic ctenophore.
Yeah, so then the ctenophores, they also have these long sweeping tentacles, right? That they then waft through the water column and then they bring it up to their oral cavity. And we saw those long tentacles sticking out from the sponge, correct?
Yep, the long tentacles were kind of drifting out in the current from the side of the sponge where they were attached.
And it's for those of you who didn't see it earlier, it seemed as if this ctenophore, that its body had melded with the sponge.
The dive is so long, I don't know if it's still in the video that's available, but people could go back and look, see if it's still there. And then otherwise, maybe it will show up as one of the highlights that they release little ways after every dive.
Yes. Can't wait to see it. And so those of you who are coming in a little late or maybe have been watching all this time, we are finishing up a 24-hour dive to the Santa Lucia escarpment. We went down to about 3,800 meters, and we were hoping to find a lot of hard bottom based on what we saw from the mapping data that can give us an idea of whether you're going to be in a hard bottom habitat or a soft bottom habitat that comes from the sonar reflectance. And we found some hard bottom, but a lot of it was covered up with this very fine sediment. And that was not a huge surprise given the geologic makeup of the Santa Lucia bank itself, which is more inshore from the escarpment. And the geology of the Santa Lucia bank is sedimentary rock. And that type of rock erodes more easily through currents and wave action compared to something like volcanic rock. So a lot of the sediment that we saw on the escarpment came sort of flowing down, like flowing down a river from the bank. Ooh, there's something. Is that just a ratfish?
It's a fish or a squid of some kind that just went by in the corner.
Yeah, it looked
Yeah.
like a grenadier.
Yeah, a grenade. That's what I thought too. A rat tail, sorry. Not fish, rat tail. The other rat.
Well, as we learned earlier in the dive when we were talking about different types of the rat tails, there are some that hang out in the midwater. So maybe that was one of those species. I always find it fascinating that one of the things you lose in the blue water, even with the lasers on, is the like the depth perception perspective. So it can be very hard to tell if something's huge or tiny or just very close or very far away.
Right. And, you know, you as a diver, as you're ascending from deep water, isn't that it's a good thing to sort of follow an anchor line, right? Because you could get sort of confused.
Yep, follow anchor line, and then when they do blue water diving places, like in the tropics, out in the Galapagos or areas, or even just doing, I've done some deep water ascents where you would just ascend off a wall but don't necessarily have the wall for reference. To have you really watch your gauges, because it's really easy to just completely lose your place in the water column and end up deeper or shallower or ascending too fast without that visual reference point.
That's one thing I do miss is scuba diving. I haven't been able to do that since I got my side dive certification in I think January.
Oh. Well, if you're
what's
getting
that?
off the shipping, oh, I think that might be a larvation outside of its house, but I'm not 100% sure. They do have that flat kind of ribbon-like body.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like a soybean, like an edamame, however people pronounce that,
Yeah.
but white. Yeah, I think that yeah, diving is just under COVID conditions, it's just very difficult. I don't think diving has been okayed at NOAA yet, has it, Meredith? You would know, or maybe you wouldn't.
It depends. There's some individual projects that have been approved for phase 1, and I think they're letting some divers possibly do some kind of distanced hours, because you have to do a certain number of hours to maintain your diving certification, but they may have put that on hold. I don't know. I'm not a NOAA diver. I only do recreational scuba diving.
Only. It's still quite an
Yeah.
endeavor here off the cold and chilly West Coast
Yes.
waters.
Well, and where I am, I've been diving a lot through the summer, partially because I'm a dive master for a local shop on my spare time. But it's all beach entries, so you're carrying all of your weights and gear and everything down a beach to walk into the water, which always adds that
Quite.
little extra bit of spiciness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way back up was always hard for me. I went diving a lot at Catalina this past year, and we did a lot of beach entries, and the way down was up this big staircase. And after a good dive, you're just, kind of tired, and then you got to walk up all these steps with your weights and your tank. Oh, yeah, it was a good workout.
Yeah. Is that where you got certified?
So yeah,
Cal?
I have my certification is AAUS, and we the CSUs have like a consortium where we all get trained in San Pedro in the pool, and then the next week of the class is at Catalina Island at USC Wrigley for a week. And yeah, it was it was only 2 weeks long, but it was a lot of work, but it was fun. Got to do a night dive. That was really cool. And we went at like 10 o'clock at night. And
did you see all the lobster?
Yeah, lots of lobsters, and then we turned off all of our flashlights and saw the bioluminescence. And when we waved our arms around, it was really cool. One of the requirements that was a night dive and being able to navigate around at night. It's pretty cool. No, so USC Wrigley. So I think it's closer to 2 harbors. I don't remember. I've only been there once. Yeah, so it was near a science station. And when we were night diving, it was like right off the pier, so it wasn't too far.
Yeah, I didn't hear your question, Meredith. What did you ask?
Oh, I think that was one of the questions from one of the pilots.
Oh, Okay.
I would
Yeah,
say to
so Two
comment that
Harbors,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, yes, Two Harbors is more in the middle of the island, and it's called Two Harbors because you can just walk across this sort of narrow part of the island and be on the southern shore or the southern shore and the northern shore where there's the two harbors. And then, but a common checkout dive place is near Avalon at Casino Point,
Yeah.
which is where I did my checkout dive.
Nice. I haven't been diving there yet.
Yeah,
I hear
it's
it's
very
great
pretty.
though.
And yeah, and since I got my certification, it has become a marine park. So I imagine the biodiversity inside of that area must have increased because of the protection.
Yeah, I'd say one of the highlights of my dives out in Catalina is I saw a giant sea bass about the size of me. I'm 5'4". It's really big. We were looking for a shipwreck, and we were like, oh, I think I see it there in the distance. And then all of a sudden it moved, and we're like, nope, that's a giant sea bass. It's pretty cool.
They've had a big project going on in Southern California, rearing the juveniles.
Yeah, a lot of that actually is going on at my school, Cal State Northridge. So, in Larry Allen's lab.
Exactly. That's how I that's how I'm following it. I did my master's work with him.
Oh yeah, you did mention that. Yeah, it's cool. We have some of the babies that couldn't be released. I don't know for what reason, but some of them are in the tank in or not eucalyptus. What is it? Magnolia Hall. In the little tank in the hallway, they have some of the baby sea bass in there. They're still huge. They're still babies.
And super cute.
Yeah, they're really cute.
With their white dots. They're black with white dots. Yeah, and it's been quite successful because they were at very low densities.
Yeah.
There for a while. So a successful rearing project and reintroduction.
Yeah, it's definitely something to pay attention to. We're seeing a decrease of a lot of species. I don't know. I have to look into what the status of the vaquita is. But I remember, like, a year or two ago, there only being like 7 individuals left.
Yeah, last I checked, there was, which was probably around that time, there was only hydraulic dorset swinging.
Yeah, and this is like the one in
7 and 20.
In the Sea of Cortez.
Yeah, I think they were going by the sounds. I think that's how they were identifying how many there were left.
Yeah.
Yeah, all good. Door.
So in diving in Central California, do you, is it mostly wetsuits around here or dry suits as well?
I'm not trained to dive in a dry suit, but yeah, I know some people that do dive in them, especially when I did my dive class in the winter in January. But I sadly only had a wetsuit. It was really cold. But they had a hot water hose on shore that I would just run to right after diving.
I'd say it's sort of a mix. You know, the old timers, the old school, they just it's just all wetsuit. But I've noticed that the newer generation of divers are much more open to the idea of using a dry suit.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be done. I did all my diving with a wetsuit. I was Tom Leidick's dive partner for a while.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. We did juvenile rockfish surveys a couple times a year, and we would always try and make it up to this one spot off of North Central California coast. It was a long-term data set, and for a couple times there, we just had the worst luck getting there. The trailer of the the whaler that we were using would have a flat tire, or, you know, just all kinds of mechanical errors. And it's very hard to figure out a weather window to get up there. So we did that with him, but we more reliably did coastal dives off of Monterey in the
Nice.
kelp. Yeah.
Love diving in kelp forests, but I'm a little biased.
I've never gotten to dive the kelp forests around Monterey, only the bull kelp forests off the San Juans, which are very different.
Yeah. It's well worth it. And, you know, just as we were talking about how you can just see so much if you just concentrate on one spot, it is so worth it on a kelp dive to just pick one spot and just really quietly explore and observe just the amount of biodiversity in a 1 square meter quadrant. So much to see. Up and down, 3-dimension, really beautiful. And the colors, just, yeah, I'm biased too, and I've done a lot of coral reef diving. I think kelp forests definitely rival.
Yeah, I've never gotten to scuba dive on a coral reef, but I have snorkeled near some in Panama, which is beautiful.
I just snorkeled one in Samoa.
Nice.
That was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I and even though kelp forests they rival coral reefs, what doesn't rival is the freedom of diving or snorkeling without a hoodie and all that weight. It's just, you just feel so free.
Yeah, diving in a hood is
so
restricting.
No hoodie. Yeah, the hoodie mostly, and no gloves. The things that you can do with your hands suddenly.
Oh, I know. I'm in a full dry suit up here in the Pacific Northwest with dry gloves and everything. So.
Oh, nice. I have to experience that kind of diving once in my life.
Yeah, I can get away with a wetsuit in the summer out here, but I do. I dive in British Columbia in the winter, and you really want a dry suit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would not
brave
try a
person.
Suit. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, and even though I said that I did all my diving in a wetsuit, Tom knew the underwater sign from me that I was too cold and that we had to go. Because after an hour, I just was, that was my limit, an hour dive. It's like, we're getting out now. What did you see on your dive in the American Samoas or snorkel?
It was just snorkeling right off of, I can't remember the name of it, but I don't know, I'm not a biologist, so a bunch of coral and a bunch of little fish.
So just like what we see now.
Yeah.
But very colorful, probably.
I only know deep sea identifications vaguely. I don't know anything shallow. A very protective little fish staring you down.
Yes, they can be. A lot of those are pomacentrids.
Damselfish?
Yes, damselfish. Thank you. And they're very pugnacious. They will just swim out and bang, 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 bang in your mask. Like, get away. And even the ones here that live off our coast, like Garibaldi's, will do that.
Oh, really? I've never seen one do that.
Oh, yeah.
That would spook me a little bit.
You've got a marine reserve. And we've got a marine reserve here in Puget Sound, the Edmonds Underwater Park, where the cabezon and the lingcod will come after you.
I haven't experienced being chased by a fish yet. I actually got my open water certification in Indiana because I grew up in the Midwest, but wanted to study the ocean really badly. So I got my undergraduate degree in just general biology and kept applying for marine things and reading marine things and watching marine documentaries. And finally, my senior year, a spot opened up in the scuba course. And so my first training was in a pool, of course, like everyone, but then instead of going to the ocean to dive, I just went to a little man-made quarry with sunken airplanes and stuff. It was pretty cool still. But it's nothing like being out in the ocean and diving. It's so much different.
Some of the biggest dive clubs are in states that are locked inland.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very active. And they're also quite the ocean stewards. So, you know, like these Nautilus live broadcasts, I think that they're also watched by folks that live inland. It isn't just for folks who live in coastal states.
Yeah, that's the great thing, is that you connect the ocean to everyone no matter where you are.
Right. So when you watch the marine snow, some of it is really just drifting down, but you can see also a number of particles that are moving. Sort of, is that just the swirling around?
I've been definitely seeing some midwater copepods and amphipods, and we might even have an ostracod in there right now.
Yeah,
that
that
are
just came
kind of
by.
mixed in. Yeah.
Yeah. So this isn't all, that was just my roundabout way of saying this isn't all marine snow.
No,
this is
no,
all
there's
dead stuff.
Definitely some plankton in there moving around and getting their cut before all of this hits the seafloor.
And copepods are an important food source for juvenile rockfish and salmon.
Yep.